Hello and welcome. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran and this is Voice of the Global South, your weekly guide to everything that's happening in Latin America and the Caribbean, Africa, Asia and Oceania. Right, on the show this week, we have a new occupant at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C., Donald Trump. What does Trump's big political comeback mean for Israel, Iran and the region at large? Will the return of Trump make Iran go nuclear? And if that's the case, how close is Iran to a nuclear bomb? That's our top focus this week. More than 100 world leaders are expected to land in Baku, the capital of Azerbaijan, over the next few days for the annual UN Climate Summit. COP29 is a last chance for the world to agree on a revised target for new financing for developing countries. Will the US play ball, or will Trump's drill baby drill policy let the climate crisis spin further out of control? And weight loss drugs are in fashion, but beware, don't play with your health. Ozempic, Vovi and Ribelsis are not for everyone. They're approved for people with type 2 diabetes, so don't make the mistake of having it to beat obesity. Such quick fixes can prove costly for you and deadly too if you're not careful. We tell you why. All that and much more coming up on Voice of the Global South. Right, tensions persist in West Asia and the Gulf. The hostilities between Israel and Iran threaten to spill over. The return of Donald Trump as the US president adds an element of uncertainty to the situation prevailing in the region. Now, why? Because it was Trump who pulled the US out of the 2015 Iran nuclear deal. But Trump did not stop at that. He imposed sanctions on Iran. And in January 2020, an Iranian general, Qasem Soleimani, was killed in a US drone strike inside Iraq. The assassination took place on Trump's watch. Now, Soleimani was no ordinary general. He was the commander of the Quds Force, which is a part of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. The IRGC reports directly to Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. So Iran has an axe to grind with Trump. But what makes it worse for Tehran is that Trump is an avowed supporter of Israel in general and its Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in particular. If you remember, it was Trump who recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital. And what's more, Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner was instrumental in the signing of the Abraham Accords between Israel and the UAE and Israel and Bahrain. Later, Israel signed a similar pact with Sudan and Morocco too. Now, the Abraham Accords were path-breaking. They normalized relations between Israel and these countries in the Arab world and northern Africa. In October, when Trump was on the campaign trail, he said that he would not want to start a war with Iran, but he said Israel should hit Iran's nuclear facilities first and worry about the rest later. He was replying to a question about how Israel should respond to the 1st October attack by Iran on Israel. So the fear in some world capitals is that Trump's return might make Iran go nuclear. Get this, Iran might see nuclear weapons as a deterrent against Western attempts at regime change. The country is already reeling from the after effects of Israel's attacks on its proxies in the region, namely Hamas in Gaza and Hezbollah in Lebanon. Also, Israel has carried out spectacular attacks inside Iran in the past. For instance, it killed at least 6 Iranian nuclear scientists, including Mohsen Fakhrizadeh. And most recently, it killed Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh in the heart of Tehran, all of which would surely have multiplied Tehran's anxieties. So the question is, what is holding Tehran back? Strangely, it's not Israel or the US. It's also not the fear of reprisals from the West or the harm that more economic sanctions will cause to the Iranian economy. It's actually its own supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. In 2003, Khamenei issued a fatwa, or a religious diktat, against nuclear weapons. He reiterated his position in 2019 when he said that building and stockpiling weapons, including nuclear bombs, are wrong, and that using a weapon such as nuclear weapons is haram in Islam. Now, haram means anything that's forbidden by Islamic law. So, will Khamenei change his stand? The simple answer is one does not know, at least not yet. But his public utterances have become strident of late, especially in the wake of the Israel-Gaza and Israel-Lebanon conflicts. Sample this. On 2nd November, Khamenei vowed a quote-unquote tooth-breaking response against Israel and the US for what they are doing against Iran and its proxies. Just a day earlier, that is on 1st November, Kamal Kharazi, an advisor to Khamenei, said if an existential threat arises, Iran will modify its nuclear doctrine. He said Iran has the capability to build nuclear weapons. Now, Kharazi was speaking to Lebanon's Al Mayadeen TV channel. Now, Iran continues to produce near military-grade uranium, but its nuclear doctrine is focused only on civilian applications of nuclear energy. The Lebanese TV channel quoted Kharazi as saying that the only thing currently prohibiting a change in Iran's approach is Khamenei's fatwa. The other question is, how close is Iran to getting a nuclear bomb? Well, it depends on who you ask. Now, various reports and studies have given different estimates and timelines. If one goes by what US spy agency CIA's chief William Burns said in October, Iran could have enough fissile material for an atomic bomb within a week should it choose to go down that path. Now, Burns was quick to add, though, that the US had no evidence that Iran has indeed decided to build a nuclear weapon. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has said that Iran could produce enough weapons-grade uranium to make its first nuclear bomb in just 1 or 2 weeks. A US publication called Foreign Policy says Iran could build a nuclear weapon sooner than you think. Iran can have up to 4 nuclear weapons within a week and another 6 nuclear bombs in 8 more weeks. It also says Tehran could complete and deploy a missile deliverable warhead in a matter of months. Now, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence of the US is of the opinion that Iran is in a better position than before to produce a nuclear device if it chooses to do so. Now, in March, Trump told an Israeli newspaper in an interview that Iran could have a nuclear weapon in just 35 days. But some others say Tehran would need up to 1 year to develop a working weapon and a year or 2 more to build a missile deliverable warhead. Now, most recently, the spokesperson of the US State Department said the US intelligence community continues to assess that Khamenei has not made a decision to resume Iran's nuclear weapons program just yet. Now, both the US and Israel have said that on many occasions that they will not let Iran obtain a nuclear weapon. Trump said at an election rally that he wanted Iran to be a very successful country, but it cannot have nuclear weapons. For his part, Netanyahu has said that the supreme goal he has given his military is to prevent Iran from achieving a nuclear weapon. But such threats might only end up provoking Tehran into accelerating its strategic nuclear program. An article published by a US magazine called The Atlantic says Israel's actions could be changing Iran's nuclear calculus, and that Netanyahu's threat to attack Iran's nuclear facilities could impel Tehran to quickly make a nuclear bomb. Now, according to a recent report by the International Atomic Energy Agency, or the IAEA, Iran produces highly enriched uranium up to 60% in purity, a material with minimal civilian use but significant military application, closely roughly 90% required for an atom bomb. The UN agency says it has enough higher enriched uranium to produce about 4 nuclear bombs if refined further. Now, Iranians fear that Trump would back Netanyahu to strike Iranian nuclear sites and reimpose his policy of applying maximum pressure on Tehran by way of sanctions on the country's economy. An article published by the Washington, D.C.-based think tank Council on Foreign Relations says Israel has attacked nuclear facilities in Iraq in 1981 and Syria in 2007, but similar attacks on Iran might not be effective. A U.S. online publication called The National Interest says Iran's nuclear program cannot be bombed away because Iran has likely dispersed its nuclear sites across the country to make targeting more difficult, and some of them could be buried so deep underground that even U.S. airstrikes would not be able to destroy them. In other words, detecting and destroying Iran's nuclear capabilities could prove to be challenging for Israel and the U.S. Now, Iranians, like many around the world, are divided on what Trump's next presidency will bring. Some foresee an all-out war between Tehran and Washington, D.C. Others hold out hope that the 47th president of the U.S. might engage in unexpected diplomacy as he did with North Korea. But nearly all believe that something will change in the U.S.-Iran relationship. Now, Donald Trump's win has worried world leaders as they prepare to gather in Azerbaijan's capital Baku for talks on combating climate change. Climate negotiators fear for the ability to agree on a new global finance target or increase the pool of countries that should contribute to it. Ragini Sudhir Chaure reports.
Trump's victory has darkened the outlook for a strong deal at the UN climate change conference. The COP29 talks are set to begin in Baku, Azerbaijan on the 11th of November, and they may have already been dealt a blow. That is because the US president-elect has in the past called climate change a hoax. His campaign promise to drill baby drill will likely drive up emissions in a country that is already the world's biggest historical emitter of carbon dioxide. Trump wants to drill for gas and oil in a bid to shore up the US economy. Those in the sustainability industry have expressed concerns because of Trump's previous stance on climate. In 2017, Trump withdrew the US from the Paris Accord. It was a legally binding international treaty on climate change with the main goal of limiting temperature increases to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. In 2021, the United States rejoined the Paris Agreement under President Joe Biden. But Trump's decisive win deals a blow to the ability of countries to agree on a new global finance target. It actually increases the pool of countries that should contribute to the top goals for the summit. The European Union and the United States had plans to push China and the rich Gulf states to start paying into the UN Climate Fund. Jennifer Morgan, Germany's State Secretary for International Climate Action, has said that it will be up to Germany and the European Union to maintain leadership in the climate finance discussions for ensuring an acceptable result. Failure to land a strong climate finance deal would be a big setback. A group of 45 least developed countries might be the hardest hit. At the COP28 held in Dubai, countries had agreed on a historic deal to transition away from fossil fuels and triple renewable energy. The question confronting the world is this: will Trump honor that deal? A report by the US University of Maryland in September found that if Biden's climate laws and policies are rolled back, non-federal entities such as states and cities can achieve a 48% emissions reduction by 2035, falling short of previous US commitments to reduce greenhouse emissions by at least 50% compared to 2005 levels by 2030. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz has cancelled plans to attend COP29. Scholz has done so because of an unfolding political crisis at home. In recent years, the United States has increasingly faced the impacts of climate change, with hurricanes and wildfires taking a toll on life and property. Outgoing President Joe Biden reversed Trump's decision on climate change mitigation. He brought in the Inflation Reduction Act, which later became the foundation for the United States Climate Action Response. Among other things, it set the path for US businesses to decarbonize their operations and reduce carbon emissions. Experts argue that the act strengthened the US stance in global climate talks. The US remains the world's single largest producer and exporter of gas and oil in the world, with its crude oil production averaging nearly 30 million barrels per day. With the world now much closer to breaching the 1.5 degrees Celsius mark of global warming set under the Paris Agreement, the stakes are even higher. Whether COP29 will keep global climate negotiations alive and kicking will now depend more on countries other than on the United States. Ragini Sudhir Jory's report for DD India.
14 November is World Diabetes Day. It's not just a date on the calendar, it's a global call to action. Now, since 1994, when the World Health Organization founded World Diabetes Day, it has stood as a powerful reminder of the rising threat of diabetes, and this year's theme of breaking barriers, bridging gaps carries an urgent message. We need diabetes care that's equitable, accessible and effective for everyone, regardless of where they live or what they earn. In 2022, the World Health Organization endorsed 5 global diabetes coverage targets to be achieved by 2031. That 80% of people with diabetes are diagnosed. 2, 80% of people with diagnosed diabetes have good control of glycemia. 3, 80% of people with diagnosed diabetes have good control over blood pressure. 4, 60% of people living with diabetes for 40 years or more receive statins. And 5, 100% of people with type 1 diabetes have access to affordable insulin and blood glucose self-monitoring. These statistics are staggering. In a world where diabetes impacts more than 400 million people and claims 1.5 million lives every year, the stakes have never been higher. Those numbers are not just data points, they are real people facing a real crisis. For those living with diabetes, it's much more than just blood sugar levels. It's about battling blindness, kidney failure, heart disease, and even amputation. Now, Novo Nordisk is a pharmaceutical giant whose name has been cropping up frequently of late. Its diabetes medication has long been a mainstay, but lately they are known for something else: weight loss drugs that have taken the world by storm. You need to understand what's happening here. An anti-diabetes drug is becoming popular as a weight loss drug. So much so that some celebrities are taking to it in a big way. US stand-up comedian and actor Amy Schumer, US billionaire Elon Musk, US actor Kathy Bates, and another US actor Whoopi Goldberg, they've all openly admitted to using Ozempic or similar drugs for weight loss. Novo Nordisk Vovi, originally a diabetes drug that was designed to help control blood sugar and slow the digestion, has been capturing the attention of the world as a potent weight loss solution. Now, people from all walks of life are queuing up to try it, and its sales are skyrocketing. Its sales are up 79% this year. It's a testament to both demand and trust that patients place on new solutions for weight management. Sales of Wegovy totaled $2.5 billion in the third quarter, ahead of the $15.9 billion expected by an analyst in a company-compiled consensus, and up 48% from the previous quarter. The company sees even more growth on the horizon, with plans to launch Wegovy in India. The company's India Managing Director Vikrant Shrotriya expects high demand and acceptance in the country. Though the company is still evaluating the pricing, he is confident that the price-sensitive Indian market will be able to afford it. He says that the Indian government's support is crucial to raise awareness about obesity as a chronic disease, a message underscored in a 2022 Novo Nordisk-funded study on India's obesity landscape. So what are Ozempic and Wegovy? Let me explain it for you. Ozempic is a medicine to manage type 2 diabetes. It's an injectable prescription drug. It helps to lower the blood sugar by helping the pancreas produce more insulin. and it can lead to an average weight loss of 6 kilograms in 40 weeks, that is about 10 months. Now, Ozempic is known generically as semaglutide. It was approved in 2017 by the United States Food and Drug Administration for use in adults with type 2 diabetes. In 2021, the US FDA approved of another injectable semaglutide called Wegovy. Now, Wegovy is useful for chronic weight management in adults with obesity and with at least one weight-related condition such as high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes or high cholesterol. So no doubt they offer potential benefits. For instance, studies have found that the medications which were first approved to treat type 2 diabetes can also make it easier to lose weight. And even those who don't lose weight show improved kidney health and heart health, thereby reducing the risk of stroke or cardiac arrest. But questions remain. Could these diabetes drugs be more than just blood sugar balancers? Could they redefine pain relief for conditions made worse by obesity? Are they a sustainable answer or just a quick fix? How effective are they really in the long term? And how do we manage their side effects? So beware, what you need to understand is this: Ozempic is not, I repeat, not a weight loss magic pill. On the contrary, it's a prescribed medicine with specific uses and potential side effects such as gastrointestinal or other stomach-related issues, nausea, vomiting, bloating, gallbladder stones, and increase in the heart rate. Now, before we proceed any further, a quick word about the company in question. Novo Nordisk is a pharmaceutical company based in Denmark. As I said before, its main product is the drug semaglutide. Now, semaglutide is used to treat diabetes, and the drug is sold under the brand names of Ozempic and Rybelsus, and it is also sold under the brand name of Wegovy for combating obesity. Wegovy and Ozempic mimic a hormone that regulates appetite and blood sugar. Demand for these medicines has turned Novo Nordisk into one of the largest pharma companies in the world today. Now, the company is working on a sequel. It's developing an even more potent obesity and diabetes treatment called CagriSema. Yet the story is not all that rosy. With Wegovy's popularity comes a dark side: shortages, price hikes, and even counterfeit copies hitting the market, all of which creates health risks in regulated areas such as the US. The high demand has led to an unexpected challenge: compounded versions appearing in pharmacies. It's a worrying trend that Novo Nordisk is fighting to control. That's not all. Novo Nordisk says it's aware of reports of 10 deaths and 100 hospitalizations of people who had taken compounded copies of its weight loss and diabetes drugs. Now, just so you know, a compounded drug is not made by companies that make US FDA-approved versions of the medicines. It's made by other companies. So compounded versions can be risky because they are not regulated as closely and are not US FDA-approved. As Novo Nordisk CEO puts it, I'm really puzzled that in a market like the US, which is a trusted, regulated market, you can actually inject yourself with a liquid product that is not regulated or approved or inspected. Now, scientists have their fair share of concerns too. They want to know more about how these drugs impact muscle loss. In a new commentary for a medical journal, The Lancet, scientists warn that there is not enough research on how muscles are affected by these drugs. Now, just over a year ago, New Zealand intercepted batches of injectable medicines that were manufactured by a little-known company in, take a guess, Bangladesh. The injectable pens contain semaglutide, a patented substance which is the key ingredient in Novo Nordisk's drugs Ozempic and Wegovy. The market for such weight loss treatments, which Novo Nordisk is targeting with anti-obesity treatment Wegovy, is forecast to reach $150 billion by the early 2030s. A Reuters report says 6 little-known companies, 4 of which are based in Asia, manufacture semaglutide-based medicines and ship their products overseas. At least 3 of these firms imported the key ingredient from, guess, China. Now, Novo Nordisk has told Reuters that it is the only approved manufacturer of semaglutide globally and that it could not vouch for the safety or effectiveness of products claiming to contain semaglutide made by other manufacturers. Even though Novo Nordisk's semaglutide is protected by international licenses, countries such as Bangladesh and Laos, which are classified as least developed nations by the UN, enjoy exemptions from industry patent rules. Meanwhile, an unexpected finding has emerged. Wegovy is not just about shedding pounds. Studies are now exploring its effects on pain, specifically knee osteoarthritis pain. It's a common ailment for people with diabetes who struggle with weight management. The results have sparked interest and optimism in equal measure. So, in conclusion, let me just say that some people argue that the effectiveness of Wegovy and similar drugs such as Ozempic is short-lived without lifestyle changes. They say that weight can return if users do not adopt healthier habits. But Novo Nordisk is banking on the belief that these drugs offer a lifeline to those who haven't found much success with traditional weight loss methods. It's a bittersweet irony that while some countries struggle to manage diabetes effectively, others are flooded with new costly treatment options. This year's theme for World Diabetes Day reminds us of these discrepancies and calls for action to bridge these gaps. Now, diabetes may be a chronic condition, but equitable access to quality care should not be a hindrance. So on World Diabetes Day, let's raise awareness, push for accountability, and continue the journey towards a world where diabetes does not have to be a barrier to a full, healthy life. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Voice of the Global South. But news continues here on DD India. You can catch all the latest updates on our social media, mobile and digital platforms. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.